About every SEC game in the Southeastern Conference this weekend. This weekend, 7 games. Before we get started, though, Boss Man, tell people how they can read your stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Steven, you got it right here. Biscuits and SEC. You can find us at Biscuits and SEC on Twitter. You can find us at that handle also on Instagram and Facebook. We write blogs on biscuitsandsec.com. And there you can also sign up for our newsletter, the Morning Biscuits newsletter, which during the season comes to you Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Just quick hitters on news around the SEC, and it's free to sign up.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I always check my inbox. It's always there. It's always good stuff. So thank you, guys. Let's get right into it this week. This game has been a pick 'em. Kentucky's favored by 1. Missouri's kind of teetering towards favorite. Missouri has a better team than their record would indicate. They are literally a running back dropping the ball before he went over the goal line, and one play against Georgia away from Eliah Drinkwitz being the SEC Coach of the Year. This is a weird game. It's one of those that can Kentucky bounce back from the absolute drubbing that they got in Knoxville? Can Missouri continue to build and make gains along the way? This game should be pretty fun, Hammer.
Absolutely. I'm really excited for this game. You look statistically at both of these teams, and they're almost dead even, as surprising as that will be to, I think, a lot of Kentucky fans or just fans who haven't really been paying attention to Mizzou. Kentucky's defense, I'm looking right now, points per game allowed 21 and a half, Kentucky 19. They both score about 23 points a game, so they're really pretty even. And that's what I expect in this game. It should be a very close matchup. I think both defenses will come to play, and it's probably going to come down to what team takes care of the ball better, as games often do. But I think this one really will. They're evenly matched. Neither offense is very explosive, so I don't expect a high-scoring game, and I don't really think you're going to see many big plays. I think it's going to be long, grinded-out drives, and both of these defenses are going to force the opposing offense to really execute over and over and over again to put together a long drive. So, it should be a really fun game, and I'm hoping that the Mizzou faithful show out, and even though it's an early game, get a good crowd there and make it tough on Kentucky.
Yeah, boss man, you got Will Levis, you got Brady Cook competing. Everybody had Will Levis as like this first round draft pick as the season started. The season hasn't exactly gone according to plan. I think Missouri might have the advantage in this game in the quarterback position. What say you?
I think you could be right. I mean, hey, I've been saying it since week one. I'm not sold on Will Levis, and to this point, he has still not sold me. On his game. I think there's the measurables are there, right? Everything that the NFL Combine and the NFL scouts want to look at, that stuff is there. But the decision making hasn't necessarily been there all year. I mean, he threw 3 picks last week. He's almost guaranteed to throw a pick. I think there's only been one game all year where he has not thrown a pick. Brady Cook, on the other hand, he's starting to get it going. He's looking better. I think early in the year he had some struggles, but it's gotten incrementally better, it feels like, over the last few weeks, to the point where, I don't know if you could say that he's better than Will Levis at this point, but it goes back to what Hank was saying. These teams are very evenly matched. I was looking at the same thing Hank was looking at earlier, just in terms of the stats and kind of the tail of the tape. And I really do think that it's going to come down to that. That's where I zeroed in on was the turnover battle. I just don't trust Kentucky at this point to win the turnover battle. I think that they're turnover prone, both in the passing game and on the ground. And I also believe that Missouri has a pretty good defense. Kentucky has a good defense as well, but Mizzou, I think, has a defense that we saw earlier this year when they played Georgia. They were able to shut that running game down until really late in the game. So I think that bodes well for Missouri in this game against Kentucky in the turnover battle on the ground with their defense against Chris Rodriguez. And the other thing to watch in this game that I was looking at is you got to remember Kentucky's offensive line. This offensive line has been porous all year. You'd have to double check me. I believe they've given up 30 sacks total. This Mizzou defense has 17 sacks on the year. I expect them to be in the backfield. I expect them to be getting tackles for loss. I expect them to be in Will Levis's face all night. So the more I'm looking at this game, the more I'm leaning towards Missouri.
Yeah, prediction time on this and final thoughts, Hammer. How do you think this game goes?
Well, as we talked about, I think you're kind of going to see a slugfest, rock fight, as some of us like to refer to those as. I'm looking at this game as like a 20-17. I lean Kentucky, so I guess I'll take Kentucky in the points and basically a pick 'em. Really, the only reason is I think Chris Rodriguez is probably the best player on either offense in this game. I suppose Luther Burden has an argument to that, but he, as expected, as a freshman, has been a little inconsistent, and perhaps not really his fault. They're just still trying to figure out ways to get him the ball, and so I think Kentucky is going to lean on Chris Rodriguez and get enough here, and I like Kentucky's defense, right, to really give Mizzou some trouble. But again, this is kind of a toss-up. Like I said, I think you're going to see a slugfest, 20-17, 17-14, something like that. I'll give Kentucky a slight edge. I just like Mark Stoops and that staff, but it's going to be a really good game either way. So I'm excited to watch.
Yeah, boss man. What say you, man?
So as I was kind of alluding to, I'm going to take Missouri in this game. I like the fact that it's at home for Missouri. Missouri always, for whatever reason, they get these early games a lot. I think it's just because they're Missouri, frankly. But in these games, they're actually pretty good. It's one of those times when you look up at the ESPN ticker after you kind of been doing your stuff around the house or whatever during the early games. You come back and you're like, oh, Mizzou's winning. Looks good for them. You wasn't expecting it. In this game, I expect them to win. I actually think that their defense and this team really has just shown that they're really close. They're right there in all of these games. They almost, nipped Georgia in the bud a few weeks ago, and they've been right there and just haven't been able to get over the hump. But I think this is the game that they do. I think they're going to win the turnover battle. I think they'll be in the backfield all day, and I think that they'll be able to shut down Chris Rodriguez enough. And I think that the offense is going to be able to do enough to win. Last week I said that they would need Luther Burden to get a win. I was completely wrong. South Carolina, actually, kind of shut Luther Burden down, but they had other ways that they could get the ball out and score. So I'm looking at this one. I think it's probably going to be around 27-20 is what I'm looking at. I think Mizzou's going to be able to score a little bit more than most expect.
Yeah, that is Kentucky and Missouri. From Columbia, Kentucky's a 1-point favorite. The over-under is at 40. I mean, we're dealing with 90s over-unders again. Kentucky 5-3, Missouri 4-4. 11 o'clock game on SEC